everyone and welcome back to my booktube channel, Lisa in Bookland. On the date of filming, it's the 2nd of July, so I'm just like 2 days too late for this tag, the mid-year Freakout tag. I wasn't tagged for anybody. As far as I understand these tags, you just kind of do them and you don't need to be tagged and you don't need to tag anyone, so that's what I'm going to follow, and it's a bit late in any case to be tagging people. It was kind of an interesting reflection on my reading so far this year. I will say it's extremely polite of this tag not to have any questions about if you're meeting your goals or not, because I'm not doing so well on those at the moment. So yes, it's just kind of books that you've read so far this year, and I really like the questions actually, so here we go. The first question is the best book that you've read this year. So this is actually really tight. I suppose usually it's usually at the end of the year I don't really pick, in most cases, a best book of the year unless there was one really outstanding. I usually pick around 10 of my favourite books, but I did attempt to pick just one book, and it's one book that I mentioned in my wrap up for this book, and I did an individual book review as well that it was going to appear in the best books of the year, and I haven't changed my mind on that. And it's this one, The Ballad of Lord Edward and Citizen Small by Neil Jordan. I have a full book review for this. I absolutely loved it. It's set in the build up to the 1798 rebellion in Ireland, but the main character is actually Citizen Small, Tony Small. He's an escaped slave from Jamaica, and through various circumstances he ends up becoming the servant of Lord Edward, who was one of the revolutionaries in the 1798 rebellion. But that's the most simplistic description ever you can give of this book. You always know 1798 is coming, but Tony is the narrator and it's about his journey, I suppose. He's always conscious of his past as a slave, getting used to his new life this side of the Atlantic. The book is constantly moving between London and France and Dublin, where Lord Edward is from, and all of the characters he meets. I recommend, if you're interested in this, going back and checking out my full book review where I go into it in much more detail. But one of my favourite things about this book was just the depiction of like late 18th century society in Dublin, and especially like the theatre scene in London as well as Dublin, and all of the like servant characters that Tony meets and just the things that Tony thinks about when he's looking at plays and stuff like that. It was just brilliant book, and it's just so well written, just a beautiful cover, and I just really enjoyed it. So the second book then is the best sequel that you've read this year. I haven't really read a lot of sequels, but the one that does stand out to me is this A God in Ruins by Kate Atkinson, which is really a little bit of a cheat because it's not really a sequel, it's more like a companion novel, but I just really liked the way it interacted with the original book, which was Life After Life, which follows the story of Ursula Todd, and this follows her brother Teddy Todd. I don't think I ever said that before. Edward Todd. That doesn't sound right. But yeah, Teddy Todd. Yes. So Life After Life is principally concerned with Ursula's childhood and especially her life during the Blitz in London. And in the Second World War, Teddy was a bomber pilot, and we knew that from the first book. But this book doesn't only follow that, it follows his life after the war, his relationship with his child, who's a bit difficult, his grandchildren, but also does go back to his time as a bomber pilot. Describes that it was so interesting looking at it because Ursula was on the ground during the Blitz, and then Teddy is obviously bombing German cities from the other side. It was just, so many interesting parallels like that. Or I don't know if anybody remembers Izzy from Life After Life. She comes across in a certain way after Life After Life, and even though she's not really a prominent character in this, you do find out more things about her that really change your view of her from Life After Life. And it's just that way throughout the whole book, really. Just the books talk to each other so really interestingly and well, and I think I'm just going to go back, and I loved both of them. I did prefer Life After Life because there's that whole extra dimension of it, of Ursula's multiple lives, which isn't really present in this, and there are some, it's mad to say in comparison to a book about the Blitz, but there are some really tough themes in this book about aging and old people and that, which I found really troubling and upsetting to read at some points. So I'd say I preferred Life After Life, but this book was still really good, and it was just an excellent companion novel slash sequel. Really gets such a good view of Teddy as a character in this book, but then Ursula is always there as well, and their relationship is so close. I suppose they're always involved in each other's lives, and yeah, brilliant. The third question is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. I actually scripted this video a few days ago and then I changed my mind after I bought this book, and it's not a new release this year, but it's a relatively new release, and it is Babel by RF Kuang. I like this book. Whenever I heard about it, it intrigued me, mostly because of the setting. It's set in Oxford in 1836. Beautiful cover again, of course, but what really changed my mind was a booktube video from RD Devonshire, fellow Irish booktuber, and she said that this was one of the best books she'd read this year, and she found it really interesting from an Irish perspective of like British colonialism, I suppose, and the impact. And so when I was in Mullingar recently, I picked up this book and I just can't wait to read it. There are other books on my shelves that I'm really looking forward to. I'm going to try and resist reading it for Jane Austen in July, but I think it'll probably be the first thing I read in August. I'm just really, really looking forward to it. You can't really beat Oxford as a setting, can you? It's about an orphan from Canton that is brought to Oxford to study, and I think there's I know there's kind of this whole magical realism element of it called silverworking, and like I suppose I'm excited about all the books on my shelves, but like this is the most excited I've spent, but yeah, it's rare that I get so excited about a really specific book. So yeah, really, really looking forward to this, and I hope it lives up to the hype. I know it is really divisive, and some people say it is a bit preachy in terms of like the colonialism, but being from a country that was colonized by Britain, I'll probably fall on the side of liking it. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. So question 4 is a most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I am not the type of person that keeps a really close eye on new releases. I suppose I'm not really in the book industry, so I just, unless it's an author I follow or it's a series I'm waiting for, I just wait until the book arrives in the shops. But what really helps me as well is those anticipated releases videos that people put out sometimes. I just watched one yesterday from Charlotte and Coyne Reads, which I'll link down below, and she had some interesting titles, but the only one that really, really caught my eye is, and I would like to read that straight away, is A Lady's Guide to Scandal by Sophie Irwin, because I really enjoyed A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting last year. But even that, I don't know if I'm going to get to it straight away. But the one book from a series I've been following that I really want to read is the next book in the Nevermoor series, which is Silverborn, The Mystery of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townshend. It's the 4th book. I was quite lucky really with the series. I only finished reading the last book earlier this year. It was December, something like that, so I haven't been waiting too long, but it did certainly leave the storyline at an interesting place, and I know it'll be an anticipated read for a lot of people. So it's kind of like reliving the Harry Potter days, isn't it? Like waiting for like a children's release to come out. It'll be, yeah, I'm excited for that, and that's going to be out on the 12th of October, so I expect I'll be reading that straight away, trying to fit it into my Victober reading. So the 5th question then is biggest disappointment. I'm not sure if it's fair to target this book as being a disappointment specifically. It's more like the series, and that is The Empire of Ivory. This is just the last one I read, by Naomi Novik. I'm still kind of on the fence about whether I'll keep continuing with the series. So this series is an alternative version of the Napoleonic Wars, where there's also a regiment of dragons, and yeah, I suppose this, like, I really, really, really loved the first book, and I quite liked the second book, and they've just been going downhill for me ever since. Like, part of me is wondering if it's because I read the first book and second book on audiobook, and they were just really good audiobooks. So the 5th book I'm tempted to maybe give it a go on audiobook instead, even though I do own the physical versions. But yes, what also doesn't help, I suppose, is they are YA, and I suppose I've not been as big a fan. I was never a huge fan of YA, and also the dragons, I suppose I wouldn't be a huge dragon person anyways. It's weird to say that when I did love Eragon, that series, the Inheritance series by Christopher Paolini, but the dragons here are quite like light-hearted, I suppose. I probably like more serious dragons. I don't really like the main dragon. Is that an awful thing to say? I don't really like Temeraire sometimes. Anyways, yeah, but there are some really interesting plays with history here, so well, I probably will continue. It's been a disappointing series for me really, when I had such a good start. And more happily, I suppose, then the 6th question is the biggest surprise, and I think the biggest surprise for me would have to be Miss Benson's Beetle by Rachel Joyce. This is a surprise in a good few ways. First of all, whenever I pick up this book, I'm surprised it's not about a car. That would be a great book also. I have a Volkswagen Beetle, so that's probably why I always think it's going to be a car, but it is actually about a beetle, the insect. And it's about 1950, and Marjorie Benson leaves her job as a teacher, which she absolutely hates, and she decides she's going to make this trip to New Caledonia to try and find the specific golden type of beetle that her father was told her about once, and she hires an assistant called Enid Pretty to help her, who's very unexpected. You can see on the cover there she is not dressed for an expedition looking for a beetle. Although I expected I would quite like this book, I absolutely loved it. It was a surprise how much I liked it, but also it was a surprise how dark it was, and that is apparent from the very first page, how dark it's going to be. I wasn't expecting that at all, and throughout there's just so many twists and turns, so it was surprising in every way, but definitely a great read. So the seventh question then is favourite new author, debut or new to you, and I'm going to do both, and I'm actually going to pick three authors because I just couldn't make up my mind. So a new to me author that's not a debut, because I enjoyed this book so much, the Ballad of Lord Edward and Citizen Small. I would say Neil Jordan. Like, it's hard to say whether he's going to be a favourite author yet, but like, I mean, he has the potential to be. He has many other books. I knew him as a film director. He was a director of Michael Collins. But if he has any other books that are historical like this, and they're half as good, I know he'll be a new favourite author for me. There's two debut authors, of course, a new favourite for me, and I can't wait to see what she reads next because this is so on point for me. Was Katie Lumsden, and her debut is The Secrets of Hartwood Hall. I was lucky enough to go to the book launch, but I was just delighted to find out that the book was absolutely brilliant in its own. When you take out the experience of being at the launch or knowing Katie's channel or anything, it's just a brilliant book. If you like Victorian literature, even if you don't like Victorian literature, if you just like books set in the Victorian period or like kind of dark country house settings, just brilliant. I loved everything about it, really. So yeah, brilliant book, and yeah, I can't wait to see what Katie writes next. And I also have to mention, and I actually was just on her webpage today and I found out she has another book coming out next year, which is really exciting. Another author I met in person, excitingly, on the same day, if you can believe it, and that's Alice Loxton. She is well known for her work on History Hit, BBC, and she has an Instagram called History Alice, which is brilliant, and this is the most funny non-fiction book I've ever read. I just love the style that she wrote it in. It's about the Georgian caricature culture, and focusing a lot on James Gilray, and yeah, there's just a laugh on every page. I just absolutely loved it. And I suppose when you're, no more than Katie's book, when you're familiar with somebody as a content creator, you hear them reading it in your head. But yeah, I just love all of Alice Loxton's work, but especially her written work. And yeah, I just can't wait to see what she's going to write in 2024. I know more than Katie, a lovely person in real life as well. So the eighth question is newest fictional crush. I don't really get crushes. I always say I'm like Charles Lucas. A character I did really like in this book was actually a minor character, but I probably did have a slight crush on him, and that was one of the officers in this, and it's quite tragic because I actually can't remember his name. But this book follows Willie Dunn, who is in the Royal Dublin Fusiliers in the First World War. It's the officer in charge of his company. He's a young officer, bit enthusiastic. All the men probably kind of mind him a little bit, but he's very friendly, I suppose, treats all the men really well. What really got my heart probably was he has a little bit Irish. He's an Irish officer. I've just found his name. It's Captain Pasley. His sergeant major is giving out about something, talking too much. They're supposed to be quiet, and he says, "Moran, leave out the giving out, man. A bit of godforsaken cuteness, if you will." "A bit of what, sir?" said Christie, sucking a little berry of blood off his finger. Quiet. "Do you not speak any Irish, Sergeant Major?" said Captain Pasley in a friendly way. We love somebody from the officer class that speaks a bit of Irish. Cuteness means quiet, Osquelga. Question 9, new favourite character. It's not the first time I've read this book, so it might be a little bit of a cheat. It's the first time that I can remember loving this character quite so much, and that is Shirley in the novel Shirley from Charlotte Bronte. I just love Shirley so much. Like, all of these tabs, I usually write on my books. I didn't on this one because it's quite old. But all of these tabs are just scenes that Shirley absolutely has the most amazing one-liners, and I just love her. Like, when I started off this book, I was like, yeah, this book is grand, nothing special, and then about a third of the way through, Shirley appears and everything just sparks. She's just brilliant. She calls herself Captain Keeldar, and she talks about taking on like a man's role, and she often like hangs out with the men, but also she talks that Caroline is a friend to her, and yeah, I just love Shirley. What a woman ahead of her time. Brilliant character. I loved her. She probably is a fictional crush now as well, to be fair. So a book that made you cry, there's the saddest book you've read. I'm glad they put in that provision, because I'm the kind of weirdo that I don't cry when a book makes me sad. Like, my tear ducts just aren't linked up to that part of my brain for some reason. I usually cry when I'm cross. But the book that made me sad, even though I don't know if sad is the right word, rather than just like bleak or depressed, and this is Dominion by CJ Sansom. It was one of the first books I read this year, and yeah, it just is a really difficult book to read. I suppose it's about an alternative history if Germany won the Second World War, and Britain is now like a satellite state of Nazi Germany, and yeah, just the first scene is like Rommel is laying a wreath to remember the First World War dead, along with the new Queen Elizabeth at the cenotaph, and yeah, it's just so bleak. Was like the Jews in Britain have slightly more rights than their counterparts in Eastern Europe, but things are getting progressively worse, and it's just really an upsetting book, I would say. So yeah, this book definitely made me sad, and you could see some parallels in the modern world and the way things could happen, and that was also really difficult to read. So yeah, that made me sad. The opposite then is a book that made you happy, and this one, I mean, I just laughed so much at it. It was just so entertaining. So yeah, Uproar by Alice Loxton definitely made me happy. So the next question is, favourite book to film adaptation you saw this year? I actually was thinking back, and I can't remember any book to film adaptations that I've seen, which is a bit strange. I don't think I've been to the cinema much this year, or even like seen old stuff, but so I'm going to interpret this instead as a favourite adaptation of a play I saw this year, which might be a bit of a stretch. But I went to see the Abbey Theatre in Dublin's production of Moliere when they came to Galway to the Black Box, and I absolutely loved it. It's a version by Frank McGuinness, so I've never read the original, but it has some wording maybe slightly modernised, even though it's all still in rhyme. They're all in period costume, but there was just some modernisations, like where the servants were like scrolling on their phone, or like Tartuffe was like kind of an influencer, and he had a ring light when he was recording videos of himself, and just for the fun of it, I suppose some kind of like Irish references as well. So yeah, it was so funny, so weird, so brilliant. Just a great adaptation, and yeah, I'll have to read the original sometime, but yeah, I saw the adaptation and then I came home and read this afterwards. That's how much I liked it, and just really clever. The 13th question then is the favourite video that you've done this year. So I had to look back, and I still have a long way to come with making videos. I think since I got the camcorder, it probably is a little bit better, hopefully. But I think the favourite one I actually did was the vlog in Connemara. It was the first kind of vlog I'd done where it wasn't just at home, so I suppose it was just fun trying to incorporate clips from different places, and yeah, I know my camera quality needs a lot to be improved, but hopefully it's a bit better now, and I can't wait to do a little bit more vlogs. Vlogs are really fun to put together, and try and put music in and things. I know I don't do very many interesting things, but I suppose I'm trying to make kind of vlogs that I like to watch. Like, I suppose I'm not hugely interested in like food or things, and I very often mostly listen to YouTube videos rather than watching them. So I like vlogs that are mostly talking about books, I suppose, with bits in between, and yeah, that's probably mostly what you'll see from me. So number 14 then is the most beautiful book that you've bought so far this year. I've bought loads of beautiful books. Secrets of Parchment Hall is lovely. Uproar, I'm very partial to Gilray cartoons, the colours on them, even besides anything else. But I think the two that I would say are I would call the most beautiful are this one, Dr. Thorne by Anthony Trollope. Very, I suppose, beautiful. Not like the cover is fairly standard. Like the cover is fairly standard. I'm not really sure about the dots, but just the whole book, like the Everyman's Library, it is the first one I've owned. They're just such beautiful books. Like the typeset, the paper is so like thick and high quality, and it's kind of creamy instead of white, which I love. And yeah, they just feel lovely, and there's a lovely heft to them. So yeah, I think I had to mention that one, and of course I just love the kind of old-fashioned bindings inside. So yeah, I really liked that one. The only reason I bought that one is because the Everyman was like the same price as a Penguin Classic. But maybe for some of my favourite classics I will treat myself. Just for my favourite paperback that I got this year, just for the cover, is this one, The Daughters of Mars by Thomas Keneally. It's an Australian author, but I just think this cover is so, I don't know, I just love the brown and the poppies, and I always have, you know, when people ask you what kind of paintings you like, I always say I love paintings with people in them, but you can't make any like features of the people, that they're kind of like in the distance. I suppose being a reader, it's so you can like superimpose whatever you think characters should look like yourself, or like paintings just that you can, I don't know, imagine whatever you want them to be. So yeah, I just think that's really captured well. You can just see their side profiles, and one of them has their back turned, and yeah, just the brown, and yeah, even the typesetting and like the side, I don't know, like it just caught my, like, I think it's a great title anyways, The Daughters of Mars, but it just caught my eye in the shop. And yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this one as well. It's about two sisters from Australia that join the war effort as nurses, and they end up going to France to be nurses on the front lines. So yeah. And so the last question then, I said I didn't ask you directly about your goals, but maybe this is where it comes up. So what books do you need to read this year? So many. So I had some goals at the start of the year that I wanted to read every book that I bought this year within the year. That is, I'm probably gonna fall short of that. I said I wanted to read more books off my current TBR. I'm also falling short from that. I'm probably going to acquire more books this year, let's face it. Look at Babel, and there is a thing coming up in August, which means I probably will acquire more books. But like, you know, it's been a kind of tough enough year in some ways, just in terms of stress and workload, and when I'm stressed I buy books, which isn't the healthiest coping mechanism, but there are worse coping mechanisms out there. But in terms of specific books then, I did have a goal that I want to finish Ulysses and finish Don Quixote this year. Again, just because of the nature of this year, I haven't made much progress on those, but I still have 6 months left of the year, and yeah, I'm determined to finish at least one of them. I just need to get back into them. I just don't pick them up when there are other books waiting for me. So yeah, I do need to look at my goals again and see what I can do to try and come closer to them. So yes, that's it. That is the mid-year book freakout tag. Let me know what your answers to any of the below questions are, especially what your favourite book you've read so far this year. Or the other interesting one, I suppose, is what is your biggest disappointment? You know, like, so yes, let me know if you've read any of the books I mentioned. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Thursday for my next video.